guys, it's Jenny here again. I have one last video for you guys tonight, and that video is 2019 rereads. These are books that I want to reread next year because, while I want to reread them, I either felt like they were too close for me to reread yet this year, or that these were the ones that I prioritized lower than the ones that I showed you for 2018. So, first up on my list is a book that I read. I think this was a series that I read in 9th grade, so this was about almost 3 years ago. So that is the Dorothy Must Die series. There is the Dorothy Must Die, Wicked Will Rise, Yellow Brick War, and The End of Oz. So basically this series is a Dorothy Wizard of Oz retelling. And it's a story of how Dorothy came back to Oz after she went back home. She missed Oz and she came back home. She found a way back. And instead of being the sweet person she was when she first came, all of the power went to her head and she became a tyrant who enslaved the world of Oz in terror. And so this new girl from Kansas named Amy, who lives in a trailer park, she gets swept up by the cyclone and is sent to Oz to deal with Dorothy. So she has a mission, which is, I have to read it to you guys, it's iconic. Remove the Tin Woodman's heart, steal the Scarecrow's brain, take the lion's courage, and then Dorothy must die. I can't really... I want to say one of my pet peeves of this book, but I can't because it's literally the most spoilsome thing that I could possibly say. So I won't say it even though I want to. But the next duology that I want to reread next year is The Wrath and the Dawn and The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. I really, really love this series. I almost put this down for 2018, but I read this in 2017. And I don't feel like it's fair to reread books every year. Well, the only exception is the Court of Thorns and Roses series because I read that every year. But that's the only series they take the time out to read every single year. This, I don't want to make a habit of it. But I do want to reread these like every 2 years because I really, really loved the story, and the romance in this was just, I loved it so much, and I just want to get swept back into the story again, and I just want to reread this. But basically, this is about a girl named Shahrazad who lives in a kingdom of, what's it called? Khorasan, where there is a ruler who is the Caliph of Khorasan. His name is Khalid, or Khalid. He is said to be an evil ruler because every day he takes a different bride, and the next morning after he takes that bride, they end up dead the next morning with a silk cord wrapped around their neck. And so he's kind of infamous for having many, many wives. And when he takes her best friend to be his wife, and she comes up dead, Shahrazad wants revenge. So she volunteers to marry the Caliph in order to gain a foothold from the inside and tear him down from the inside out. Only she survives the next dawn, and the next, and the next, and the next. And she discovers that there's more to Khalid, or Khalid, there's more to him that meets the eye. And then she survives the dawn. She ends up falling in love with him. All is not as it seems. There are secrets within the palace, and things that she could never have known. So this is such a good series, guys. I loved it so much. That's why I DNF'd Flame in the Mist, because I had such high expectations after reading this work from Renee Ahdieh that when I started Flame in the Mist, I couldn't continue. I got like 70 pages into it and and after that I'm like, this doesn't even feel like it's going to have any of the vibe that Wrath in the Dawn did. So these are still at my favorites, and I plan to reread them next year. So the next series is another favorite that this was the series that I read either right before or directly after Wrath in the Dawn. And that's The Selection by Kira Cass. These are the only books that I consider to be in the series. I don't count The Heir or The Crown. Those books are crap. These ones are my babies. I love them so much. So we have The Selection, The Elite, and The One, all by Kira Cass. These basically center on a girl named... Hold on, I know this. No, I don't. America Singer. And she, basically in this world, the different levels of wealth are opened up into number systems. So the higher your number is, or I guess I should say the lower your number is, the wealthier or more important you are. So America comes, and each number has a different job position. So, like, say royalty is a 1. America comes from a line of 5s, which are artists, musicians, stuff like that. And to help out her family, she enters The Selection, which is a competition of 37 different girls to win the prince's hand in a competition. And yeah, she ends up being selected out of all of these girls that entered to be in The Selection. She ends up being one of the selected. And so she gets entered into the competition, and a bunch of crap goes down, guys. And I love this series so much. It's one of those trashy YA novels that is just like, I mean trashy in the best way possible. Kind of like how I feel about Twilight. They're trashy because they are so freaking good. And like, they're a guilty pleasure read. That's like, they're not... Trashy to me in YA terms means like very carefree. They're not like very complex and hard to understand. They're guilty pleasure reads. You don't have to think to read them. They're just like the things that you want in a book. And that's why I love The Selection so much, and I'm dying to reread them. So that's exactly what I plan to do next year. So the next series that I want to reread, but I don't want to reread at the same time, is actually another trilogy. And it's actually another dystopian. And that's the Maze Runner trilogy by James Dashner. I have very mixed feelings about this series. I don't know how I feel about it anymore. And since it's a sci-fi dystopian, I really don't know how I'm feeling about it. But I really want to reread this because if I don't like these, then they will be going. It's been a while. I still have controversies with my best friend over this. But okay, so in the series is the Maze Runner, the Scorched Trials, and the Death Cure. So basically, the Maze Runner is centered on this boy named Thomas who wakes up in a lift. He can only remember his name, and he's surrounded by strangers whose memories are also gone. They are in an ever-changing maze in the middle of nowhere. And no one's ever made it through the maze alive. So then the first girl ever to arrive in the glade, which is what they call their clearing, the first girl ever arrives and everything changes. So she delivers a message and it's terrifying. And so they all end up going on this adventure. And it was pretty good at the time, but I still don't know how I'm feeling about it right now. So yeah, I think I want to get to this one. I don't know if I will for sure or not. But the one that I actually pulled off my shelf that I didn't see that I also want to reread is Dumplin by Julie Murphy. I really want to reread this book solely because it's one of my favorite contemporaries like that I own. I forgot I had this on my shelf for some stupid reason. I still thought I had it lent out to someone. But basically this is about a girl named Willow Dean Dickinson, and she is dubbed Dumplin of her town because she is plus sized. So, her her mother's nickname is Dumplin for her. Her mother happens to be an ex-beauty pageant queen. Her mother is an ex-beauty queen. And her best friend is the, like, epitome of perfect. So she's starting to feel a little bit self-conscious. And she starts to fall for this boy at work. And just to say screw the haters and kind of bash the stereotypes, she enters in the beauty pageant. And along the way, she also encourages other girls with insecurities to join as well. And they all enter this beauty pageant to show the perfect girls what they're really made of. And it was a very well-written story. It was funny, but it handled a hard topic in a way that it really got the point across in a respectful way. And I love this book, and I will definitely be rereading it because I forgot about it. So the next trilogy I want to reread is a fairy tale retelling, and that is Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oakes. I know I just read the third book this year, but I haven't read this book in 2 years. I haven't read the first book in 2 years. So I really want to reread the series as a whole so that the story flows, because the events in the story go back to back to back. But I had to wait years for each of the releases to come out. So next year, I want to read them so that they all flow together the way they're supposed to. So you have Queen of Hearts, Blood of Wonderland, and War of the Cards. This centers on a girl named Dina, who is the Princess of Hearts, future Queen of Wonderland. Her father is the King of Hearts, I believe. And she has been training all of her life to take over as Queen of Hearts one day, only for one thing to change. Her father has never loved her, appreciated her, cared for her. But one day she just discovers a darkness brewing in the castle and inside of herself as well. And many things happen along the way. She's launched into political darkness, and I love the series, guys. Despite how many times it may have made me cry, the ending is everything. So the next series I want to reread is one that I reread 2 years ago. 1 year ago? 2? I don't remember. I'm losing track of time. And that is the Twilight Saga. I plan to reread this next year. And that is Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, and Breaking Dawn. I want to reread these just because I want to reread these. These are another trashy YA series that they get my page count and book count up for the year up extremely high, extremely fast, and I just really enjoy the story and how easy the characters and the plot flow. And I just really enjoy reading them because they're easy to read and I enjoy reading them. And if you don't know what Twilight's about, it's about this girl named Bella Swan who moves to Forks, Washington from Arizona to go live with her father. And she meets Edward Cullen, who, as it coincidentally turns out, she feels a very strong attraction to him, only to find out he is not human. He is actually a vampire. And yeah, that sounds very cliche and cheesy. Yes, I know, because it is, but I love the story regardless, and you can't shame me for loving Twilight because I will do it anyway. So the next book I want to reread is Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. This book I have read multiple times. I read this about 4 years ago 4 times, and I rented it from the library each time. And I ended up buying the book on Book Outlet, but I got the movie tie-in. And basically this follows a girl named, oh god, what's her name? Samantha, who she is like the it girl of the school. And then one day she wakes up, and at the end of the day, she gets in a car accident and dies. but then she wakes up the next day and relives the same day over and over and over again 7 different times. And she can't figure out why, so she is, she still wakes up the next morning. And it's a really cool book. It was a really emotional story because it shows how people really can change and how, like, it shows what giving kindness to someone can do for them and what being mean or negative to them can also do to them. And overall, it was just a very important story, and I really enjoyed it, and I just really want to reread it because it's been a while. The next book I really want to reread that I actually read last year is Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. This is a very dark story. It is dark. This is as dark as it gets. Basically, this centers on a girl named Alex who knows how to kill someone. After her sister is raped and brutally murdered, she, and the killer is found, but not, the killer's found and everybody knows who it is, but nothing is done to him. So she takes matters into her own hands and, is responsible for his death, but she doesn't get caught either. And so her crime goes unpunished. So she's kind of like the shadow person of the world. But the popular guy and the preacher's daughter, they seek her out and befriend her. He is the guy, he sees her, he thinks her mysteriousness is cool, and the preacher's daughter, they start working together at the animal shelter, and they become friends. So the most unlikely group of kids ever becomes friends. The unpunished, unofficial serial killer, the jock, and the preacher's daughter, they become friends. But, circumstances bring them together. Partying one night, Alex's darker side comes out to play, which puts all of their lives in danger and at risk. And it's just a really tough book, but it's a very good book. I think I posted a video of this book, but I desperately want to reread this. I loved this book phenomenally. The ending pissed me off, but it was extremely powerful, and this is a book I definitely wouldn't mind rereading. The next book is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is a book that I read 2 years ago. It'll be 3 when I reread this, but this is not a Cinderella. This is an Alice in Wonderland retelling. This basically centers on a girl named Catherine Pinkerton, who is the daughter of the Marchiones. Maybe? I think, she is their daughter, and she is desired by the King of Hearts. She is a baker, but her mother doesn't approve of her baking as a hobby, and she's just desired by the king. She's one of the most desired girls in Wonderland. At the royal ball, where she is expected to be proposed to by the king, she ends up meeting his jester instead and falling in love with his jester. And this is a story of how a girl who was destined to marry a king ends up falling in love with his jester. And it's just, I really love the story because it shows how the Queen of Hearts became the way she is. And I want to reread it because I didn't appreciate that the first time I read it because I didn't really know the depths of the story. I just assumed, hey, it's going to be a retelling, it'll be light and fluffy and fun. No. This is a dark retelling. But it was a really good retelling, and that's why I want to reread it so I can appreciate it more the second time around. Finally, The this so far duology, it's soon to be a trilogy because the release will be coming out by the time I reread it. But it's going to be a 4-book series, which will be Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. This, I think I reread the first. I think I read the first book 2 years ago, and then I read the second book 1 year ago. But man, mouth is getting dry. This centers on triplets in the island of Fenburn. Basically what happens in Fenburn is every so often a set of triplets are born, and each of them gains a different power. There's a poisoner who can ingest poisons and it not harm them, naturalist who can bloom flowers, make things grow, and speak and communicate with animals. Or there's naturalist, elemental, who can control storms, anything of the element sort. So each girl gets a different power. And when they are a certain age, they get separated and divided into different parts of the city to train and hone their powers. And when they are 16, they are all brought together to fight to the death. And one of them becomes the queen of Fenburn. And it's all about the story and how these particular 3 triplets, Catherine, who's the poisoner, Arsena, who's the naturalist, and Mirabella, who is the elemental. And it just shows how these sisters develop, and I really, really enjoyed this story. I actually enjoyed the second one more than the first, but I'm highly anticipating the third book. There should be one more after the third. And this was originally only supposed to be a duology, but now it's 4 books, and I'm very happy. So I'm definitely going to be rereading this, and I can't wait. But that concludes the books that I'm going to be reading next year. Like I said, this could change, but these are the books as of right now that I plan to reread. So yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and let me know down below if you plan to read any of these books or reread any of these books, or if you have read any of these books recently. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you later.